This is an introduction to Arbutus Results Manager. Results Manager works with Arbutus Hub to provide an easy, browser-based way to manage the remediation process for results generated by your analytics. On this diagram, you can see all of the Arbutus components. And of course, on the right part of this diagram, there is Arbutus Hub. And of course, off of Arbutus Hub is Results Manager. So again, browser-based access way to manage the results that are generated by your analytics, whether those are centralized, automated, or interactive analytics. Results Manager uses the login credentials that you would also use for Arbutus Hub. So whether that's Windows login or your Active Directory credentials. So I'm just going to enter in my credentials and log in. So the initial screen when you log into Results Manager is the dashboard. So the dashboard are preset visual representations of the different elements in Results Manager. So I currently have 6 different visualizations representing different elements of Results Manager. I can customize this, and there's up to 11 different visualizations that can be added to your dashboard just by toggling them on and off through the Customize dashboard. And of course, you can drill into these results as well and see further elements as need be as you go through your results. And these can be repositioned as well and configured however you want them. Again, these are not configurable elements to the dashboard. They're preset then to highlight the different elements part of Results Manager. I'll provide additional information later in this session on how you can do additional dashboarding and analysis of the data repository behind Results Manager. On the left part of your screen are the different tabs and areas of Results Manager, how you navigate to them. You can have this be strictly icon-based, as I show now, or you can have more explicit labeling for your different components. I'm going to go initially to the User tab. There are 2 types of users currently supported in Results Manager. You can be an administrator or just a user. I'll say an administrator will give full access to all the areas of Results Manager. A user will only see activities and results. And the intention of a user, the results or activities generated by Results Manager, and they will be tasked with going through one or more workflows that have been they're a part of. In this case, I have a number of users already set up, and as I mentioned earlier, you need to have the appropriate credentials through Hub in order to log on to Results Manager. And as an administrator, I can add additional users to the system. And here I can tag them to be administrators or not. And you can add initials and type just to for further detail that can be fed into the system. And of course, at this point, you can add people to different groups, or you can go specifically to the groups area, and I can add other people to this. So this currently group has these 3 people, and certainly I can just add additional people or remove people as needed from the different groups. You can have groups set up with a particular allocation method if you so choose to have, okay, within this group, have activities be sent equally through each person in the group. You can have it go randomly, or the system can see, okay, who's least busy, who's the least number of activities assigned to them, and assign an activity to that person. So these are users and groups. Now let's go into one of the key components of Results Manager, and these are workflows. This is where you can set up your remediation processes for the results that are fed into the system. Let me open up a workflow right here by clicking on it. And this one is called P-card spending. So again, this is an existing workflow. There will always be a start and a close, and in between there you can have one or more activities. This one is fairly straightforward. Now, for our purposes now, I have this one drawn P cards, and so large transactions. And you can see out of this initial activity, there are 3 lines: unauthorized transactions, authorized, pre-approved, or unauthorized merchant. So 3 options for the person resolving this activity to move it further along in the workflow. Now, let me add another activity to this workflow just to highlight how easy it is. So I'm going to drag this node, and as soon as I release it onto my workflow, it's going to ask me for a label. So again, this can be the person it's going to or the area. I'm just going to again call this going to a P-card manager, and this one is again for purchases over assigned limit. And I can assign an individual or a team to be the owner of this activity. And this, as we mentioned earlier, for the allocation method, that can be based at that group level, or I can also, as part of this activity, assign an allocation method. This allocation method will take precedence if you don't choose an allocation method here. The group allocation method that we talked about earlier will apply. Let's say I want this to apply evenly as things get assigned to this group. It is a best practice to have activity assigned to a team and not necessarily to an individual. So as there may be turnover, there's less disruption to how things might be allocated, but you do have the option of assigning it to a group or an individual. As well as this activity, you can have the option to have it be returned to the assignee, to the person that forwards this to you. And of course, here you can say how long should this activity take to resolve. So based on days, hours, minutes, depending on the level of urgency, let's say I'll leave this at days, and this one should be done, say, within 3 days. So here is a simple activity that I've now added to this workflow. Now I want this to flow out of this one. So you can see as I hover over an activity, there's a number of nodes, tabs that are off of here. So I can just drag this one and plug it into this one. So these are transitions, and these will become more clear as we go and work through an activity later on in this walkthrough. But this one, essentially, let's call this one over limit. So if there's something over limit, click on save. See, I can see that's been added now to this connector between the initial activity and the next step. And of course, it's going to be a very simple one for the example, and I'm going to say, okay, and the person has the option to close it off. Say, okay, this large over limit transaction was approved. And if you recall, when I set up the activity, there was the option to have this be returned to the assignee. So again, this is just a new addition to this workflow. I will click on Save. And now we've created and added to this workflow process. Now I'm going to switch over to Analyzer and explain how results go from Analyzer, from Hub, into the Results Manager system. So there is a command called results. So in this particular procedure here on the screen is the command here called results, and there are a number of parameters that can be entered in. Some of them are optional, some of them are required. So here is the creator parameter here, or source. So we're saying, where did this result come from? If you recall from the results manager, there was a workflow called pcard. That was one we were just in. So you do need to specifically name that workflow in the results command so it knows where to go. And there are some other optional parameters here. A reference information, in this case, it's actually referencing a actual field from the result, and a description, where again, I'm putting into a fixed text plus the transaction ID. And of course, I'm attaching an output file. So again, this is just some parameters in the results. There also is a setting here called single. So if you have that in there, that means a single result from this is going to be fed into Results Manager. So if you ran an analytic and it produced 25 records, if you have single tag, it's going to go in there as one exception. In this case, I'm generating about, let's say 10 exceptions. Those are going to be in my spreadsheet that are attached and so on. If I didn't have single in there, all say 25 exceptions would get fed into Results Manager individually. So you just have some control there over, based on the analytic that you are creating and how the results flow into the system, you have some control over how those are presented in Results Manager. Another way of feeding Results Manager is via a workflow. So here again is a simple workflow that I'll load in here, and it is going to be doing a simple fuzzy match between vendors and employees. And it's creating a spreadsheet, and it's sending the results to the Results Manager. So if I open up this dialog or this command, again, same sort of parameters that we saw in that procedure command and results. Now we have a dialog box where the same sort of things can be configured in here and will feed into the system. There's two ways of doing that. Now I'm going to click on OK and run this procedure. And now let's switch back over to Results Manager. And now I'm going to go to the Activities tab. So this is something, if you are even a user, you're going to have different activities assigned to you. In the case I'm an administrator, so I can see mine, but I can see all activities. So let's just leave it on all for now. I'm not sure who would have been assigned this particular result. And let me sort by date. And here you can see the result that was just fed in. To here, I can click on this result. So I've been assigned, this one is assigned to a Joe Clark. Let's assume I'm Joe Clark, and I click on this activity. Here you can see in this dialog box all the different parameters that we set up. If you recall that initial activity, there were 3 arrows: unauthorized, authorized, pre-approved, unauthorized merchant. And now we've added another one called over limit. So these are all the options of how I can remediate and resolve these activities. And of course, if I go to the Attachments tab, there is my spreadsheet that was attached as part of that results command. I have the option of adding additional files, additional supporting documents, whatever you want. Those can all be fed into the system at this point. Notes can be added and reviewed from any stage in the workflow process. So I can add in a note, and it says who entered it, and so on. And of course, any instructions, part of the person who is remediating a particular activity, any appropriate instructions certainly can be added and viewed here as well as this part of the process. So let's say this one was approved. I'm the person who is remediating this particular result. If I want to put in additional amounts, if I want to put in any costing and hours and so on, these are just other optional parameters that you can enter in. I'm going to click on Authorized, Pre-Approved, and now you'll see this result will now disappear from my activities. So that is what it will look like as you work through and see different activities that are fed into the system and individuals that will resolve those. The results tab is effectively showing you what has happened with the different results that have been fed into the system. So I can look at active ones, or I can look at all activities, including ones that have been closed. So if I want to look at more recently closed activities, here's the one I just closed a few minutes ago. I can go into that. And of course, there wasn't a whole lot that happened. If there were multiple steps in this one, they'd all be laid out here in the results. So just again, a way to see essentially a log of all the activities and the steps they've gone through as they work towards the final closure and completion of the remediation process. The final tab that you'll see in Results Manager is the administration area. And this is just, at this point, just for creating backups for all your Results Manager data, or listing backups if you need to restore data from a prior period. So it is all of those backups, and only administrators obviously will have access to this. So all data that is stored in Results Manager is fully encrypted on the Arbutus Hub. And in addition to the dashboards that you saw when you initially logged in to your Results Manager, all the data that you have access to that is created through Results Manager is available as a repository and can be exposed through Analyzer for further analytics, or to be fed into other dashboards more specifically focused on your needs. So I'm going to switch back to Analyzer, and I've opened up an Arbutus project that has a hub folder that is mapped to my Results Manager data. So as you can see here, I have a hub folder, Results Manager data. Here are all the different tables that I've set up access to within the Results Manager database. So for example, if I open up the Activities tab, I've also related other tables as part of the Results Manager database, and these can now be viewed and worked with right within the system. So you can see here I have a related field. I've brought in the name and other workflows and other components into this data. So now I can go proceed. I can go ahead and analyze this data. You look at all the different, say, transition points in a workflow, what has happened here. If you want to quickly analyze it for, see what are the common trends, whatever it might be, or the duration of time between something opened and closed. All sorts of analytics can be generated from the use of Analyzer, and you can work with it in this way. In addition to this, you can now use Analyzer and export the data into many other formats, whether it's to Tableau, to Excel, to a delimited file, that can then be used by another data visualization tool or some other dashboard that's created that is going to now show the data and highlight all the different elements as it's been configured by yourself. So just lots of flexibility with the giving you full access to the repository that is generated by Results Manager, especially over a longer period of time, helping organizations get a much broader view of the different remediation processes and how they have played out as things have been resolved. So that is a quick overview of Arbutus Results Manager and your use of the Arbutus Results Manager repository.